Yo, what's up guys, it's King Sean here, and in today's video, I want to talk about some defensive coordinator candidates that the Commanders have requested interviews for. These guys are well known around the league and some of the top names on the defensive coordinator market, and are guys that may have a good chance of landing the Commanders' defensive coordinator job. Also want to talk about some guys the Commanders are expected to interview for their vacant quarterback coach job. Before we get into that, though, make sure y'all leave a like down below, subscribe if you're not already subbed up to the channel, and turn on notifications. And with that out of the way, let's get straight into today's video. Alright, so let's go in order in which these things were reported. Reported by Ian Rappaport yesterday, former Arizona Cardinals coach Jonathan Gannon has a busy week ahead of him. Sources tell him and Ian Garofalo, he is interviewing for the Cowboys defensive coordinator job tomorrow, which is today, the Commanders DC job on Thursday, and the Titans head coach job on Sunday. So very busy schedule for Jonathan Gannon, 2 DC interviews and 1 head coach interview. I personally feel like Gannon's probably not going to get a head coach job again, at least in the near future. He's most likely to land as a defensive coordinator. The Titans have interviewed a bunch of different guys. I think close to like 15 guys, if I'm not mistaken. So, I'm not surprised at bringing in Gannon for an interview, but he's most likely to land as a D coordinator, and one of the jobs he's interviewing for is the Commanders' DC job. So, as I would assume most of you guys know, Jonathan Gannon was fired from the Cardinals about a week ago at this point, and obviously it makes sense because his 3 years with the Cardinals weren't great. They went 3-14 this past season. In his first year there with Arizona, went 4-13. His best season was 2014, where they went 8-9, but just wasn't getting it done, so they moved on from him. No surprise there. Probably not going to get another head coach job, like I said, so a DC job would make the most sense for him, and he can call defense. I know the Cardinals' defense wasn't amazing this past season. At certain points, certain games, they were pretty good, but overall they weren't great, but they did deal with a lot of injuries on defense, so that could play a part in why they weren't as good. But when he was the Eagles defensive coordinator in 2021 and 2022, the Eagles defense was pretty good, especially that 2022 season. That season, the Eagles ranked 8th in points allowed per game, giving up just 20.2 points per game, and 2nd in total yards allowed per game, giving up just 301.5 yards a game. So that's really, really good, man. That is really good defensive rankings. They struggled a little bit against the run, but they were pretty good against the pass. So there's that. So the Eagles defense was really good in 2022, and a large part of that is thanks to Jonathan Gannon, and that's why or how he got the job in Arizona, right? So, he was a good play caller, and again, at times he did have good defensive games with the Cardinals, but again, overall it wasn't great. But maybe he can return back to form as a defensive coordinator. There are some guys in this league that are just made to be better play callers rather than head coaches. Guys like Steve Spagnuolo or Josh McDaniels. And I'm not comparing Jonathan Gannon to those guys because, I don't think he is an elite defensive play caller, the best, the greatest. However, he is a solid defensive play caller in my opinion, and I feel like if he becomes a defensive coordinator again, he can prove that, hey, I am a good play caller. He's young, obviously lots of experience calling plays, and he'd be a guy that I could definitely see us hiring as our defensive coordinator if we ultimately decide to do that. Moving on to the second guy I want to talk about, Brian Flores, current defensive coordinator for the Minnesota Vikings. Ian Rappaport reported that the Commanders are hoping to interview Brian Flores for their vacant defensive coordinator job. Source said Flores' contract is up in Minnesota, so he is able to look at other similar jobs. So that last sentence is important. Since Flores' contract is up and he is in need of an extension, he is technically a free agent right now. The Vikings could bring him back, and they do want to bring him back. And Kevin O'Connell said in his press conference today that, they are confident that they can get Flores back. However, they do need to work out a deal with him, and if they don't, hey, that'll just raise the interest from other teams for Brian Flores. Right now, Flores is already demanding a lot of interest from teams as not just a defensive coordinator hire, but as a head coach hire, which we all thought there was a low possibility of Brian Flores potentially getting a head coach offering again after the whole fiasco in Miami and that ordeal, what happened down there, where he accused the Dolphins owners of, forcing him to tank that 2019 season, right? We all know that whole mess, that whole drama, so I don't need to dive into it. But after that, we thought that, hey, yeah, there's no way. After the way people talked about Brian Flores, the league, yeah, he's not getting a head coach job again. But some teams are showing interest in him, like the Ravens. They interviewed Flores for their head coach job today. He could be a guy that they have high on their radar. But for the Commanders, we are bringing in, or hoping to bring in, Brian Flores for a interview for our defensive coordinator job. Obviously, since we let go of Joey Jr. last week, we all know how successful Brian Flores' defense with the Vikings has been. I mean, this past season, the Vikings went 9-8 with all of the issues at quarterback for them, right? The injuries for them. And yet they still had a winning record. Didn't make the playoffs, but they had a winning record. And a large part of that is because of their defense, man. Brian Flores had them playing. I mean, they held us to 0 points. And I know our offense wasn't great this season, but still, we didn't score a single point. We got shut out. Their defense is so good. The way Brian Flores schemes stuff up on that side of the ball is incredible. And who wouldn't want to have that on their defense? Who wouldn't want to have that guy coaching that defense? I'd absolutely love to have Brian Flores here as our defensive coordinator. Now, how likely is it that we actually hire him? I don't know. Right now, I'd probably say it's low because he's getting, interest as a head coach. But I don't even think he gets hired as a head coach, at least this cycle, right? I think he's going to remain in Minnesota. The Vikings would be dumb, in my opinion, to just let him go. He's the reason why they had a winning record this past season. That defense is the reason why they had a winning record this past season, right? Like, without their defense, without Brian Flores, they maybe go 5-12, 6-11, something like that. They definitely don't go 9-8, right? They definitely do not finish with a winning record, right? So, Brian Flores is so essential to their success that they are not going to let go of him that easily. So I think they'll work out a new contract with him after he sees what's out there, head coach market, in the DC market. He'll decide to remain in Minnesota, go back there, and I think we'll have to pick elsewhere for our DC opening. Next up, I want to talk about some of the guys the Commanders have requested interviews with for their QB's coach position. Remember, we hired David Blau as our OC, so now we have a void to fill at QB coach, and we have requested interviews with two guys. First guy up, Mike Bercovici. I hope I pronounced his name right. I probably didn't, but I'm just going to call him Mike in this video, and I'll learn how to pronounce his name right. But it was reported by Jordan Schultz that the Commanders have requested to interview Panthers assistant QB's coach Mike Bercovici for their QB's coach position on David Blau's staff. A former QB himself and just 32 years old, he has played a big role on Carolina's staff working with Bryce Young, and he also crossed paths with Jaden Daniels at Arizona State in 2019. So as Schultz stated here, Bercovici has been on the Panthers staff for the past 3 years, actually, as their assistant QB's coach. And then from 2020 to 2022, he was on the Cardinals staff as a offensive assistant coach. So he was under Cliff Kingsbury. Cliff was the Cardinals head coach at the time, as you guys know. So he worked under Cliff's staff, which is, somewhat of a connection right there, since obviously Cliff was here as our OC for 2 years. But the main connection is he was a assistant at Arizona State in 2019. Jaden Daniels was at Arizona State in 2019. So that connection to Jaden, as well as his assistance with the development of Bryce Young, is a big reason why I feel like we're giving him this interview opportunity, and he is a real candidate for our QB's coach opening. He's 32. He was a QB himself at Arizona State, I'm pretty sure, and he got the job as an offensive assistant over there in 2019, right? So that was a good opportunity for him, and now he is a guy who is helping other quarterbacks in the NFL develop, and he could be that guy for Jaden, that replacement for David Blau and Tavita Pritchard in the QB room. And that's a hire. This is a hire that I feel like would be good. Young guy who can relate to Jaden because he played quarterback in college football, and I feel like this would definitely be a good hire if this is the direction we decided going. And then the other guy we requested to interview is Falcons assistant QB coach DJ Williams, and we're obviously interviewing him for the QB coach job, our QB coach job. He was actually the QB coach for the Falcons this past season, and the year before he was their assistant QB's coach. So, that's a guy we're interested in. And one thing about DJ Williams is he is the son of Washington great Doug Williams, and Doug Williams is in the building, right? So, hiring him, that's the connection right there, right? Hiring him, the son of Doug Williams, right? It would make sense, and bring him into the QB room, that would make sense if we were to go that route. And like Jeremy Fowler stated in his tweet, this is a guy who has helped the development of young Michael Penix in his first 2 seasons in Atlanta, so maybe he can do the same with Jaden. Now, Penix hasn't been great for the Falcons. He was injured this past season. He got injured midway through the season, I'm pretty sure, so obviously Kirk Cousins had to start the rest of the way. But, we saw some signs of Penix turning into a good quarterback this year. Maybe DJ Williams can come in and help the development of Jaden as well. So this is another guy that they have on their list, and one guy to watch out for their QB coach hiring whenever they do make it. So that's it for today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, leave a like down below, subscribe if you're not already subbed up to the channel, and turn on notifications. Comment down below your thoughts on the candidates I talked about in today's video for the defensive coordinator and QB openings. And other than that, it's been King Sean, and I'm out. Peace.